have such a long career and a very international career, so which prepared me for, without knowing, for the role. So when I stepped into the position as an artistic director here in Vienna, I realized I knew pretty much everything I needed to know. So there were not, or they haven't been, there's only I've only been here a few months, so I don't want this to be my last words, my last famous words, but until now I haven't had that many surprises. I mean, I have challenges, but that I knew were, and the challenges are what I expected them to be. But I also have some really wonderful surprise, because I had a goal in how I wanted the company to grow, how I wanted the dancers to respond, and I thought it was going to take me some time, but I am so thrilled because really the result came immediately, and the dancers have been amazing in the studio, and they surprise me every day how I never expected. So that is a surprise, but it's a positive surprise. The truth is, I didn't really ask anybody to join the company. They all came to me. So all these beautiful, wonderful dancers that asked to join in all ranks of the company, not just the one that everybody knows, but you know, like Casaligno and Fernandez, Cascetta, Madison Young and Gromova, but even the one that joined in other ranks, soloist or corps de ballet, they're all dancers that asked me to come and that they wanted to join. So what I look in a dancer, they're all very different. This is what's so wonderful. They're all very different. So they're not, it's not a mold that I want, but I want people who have a soul, who have a burning desire to grow. So it's not just to dance, but it's to grow as artists. Yes, in 2007, I said I had my farewell performance, mainly in New York, but I had one at Milan. You know, I had one in each city that meant something to me in my career, which was Milan. It was in Hamburg. It was in the great one, the big one in New York, in Tokyo, and. But after 7 years, I returned to the stage. Again, it wasn't something that I planned. I say that again, I do not plan my life. But it was, I don't know, again, a natural evolution. I mean, I was really missing, I wasn't missing performing, but I was missing dance. I was missing who I am. You know, there was a part of my life which is a huge part, and that has been a huge part since I was 4 years old, that was kind of switched off. I put it into another room, and I didn't dare to open the room and look in. And then it just happened that I was walking on the streets of New York, and I bumped into the choreographer and director Martha Clark, who approached me and asked me if I wanted to work with her. And I actually thought, well, why not? You know, and I thought it would be really interesting to do things that I haven't never, you know, not big ballets, big role, but even something quite small, off Broadway, just to discover another dimension of performing. And so the project Chérie came along, and it became very successful. We had like 100 performances at the Signature Theater in New York, and that became the start of a whole new phase of another 10 years of my artistic life. You know, from there, when McGregor approached me for Wolf Works, for Virginia Woolf and John Neumeier, for Eleonora Duse, and so on, so on. So I ended up having 10 amazing years later on that were not expected. I was very curious to do new things and also curious about myself on stage, being 50 until I was 60. And there have been some really beautiful, meaningful years for me. I don't do class right now. In fact, I think that, you know, when I do something, I do it fully. So when I stopped with Wolfworks again in New York at the Met, when I stopped, I stopped. I threw all my shoes away. I'm like, okay, it's done. So right now I am so fully committed and involved, and I give all my energy to the Wiener Staatsballett, the company, the rehearsal, the dancers, the organizations. And so I don't miss dancing at all at this moment in my life, because I have dance in my life in another form through the young dancers, and there's such fulfillment and pleasure in sharing myself and my knowledge, my experience, my vision with the new generation. That again, you know, I was privileged since 4 years old to wake up every day of my life and be happy about going to work, which for me is not work, but is a passion. But it's such a privilege in life to do that. And it still happens, but now it happens in a different way as a director. So that life in me continues. One of the major and probably the most important person in my journey, artistic journey, was Sir Kenneth Macmillan. He picked me. I was 16 when I did the school performance at the Royal Ballet School, the concerto. I was doing his second movement and the pas de deux of his ballet concerto, and soon after I joined the company. And he made me aware of who I am as an artist. He guided me to get to know myself and to get to know my depth and interiority, and how I could express that through dance by giving me his most amazing ballets, which were Meyerling was my big debut when I was 18, and shortly after Manon and Romeo and Juliet, and then he created for me several pieces in London and in New York with American Ballet Theatre. So I think that I consider him my artistic father, really. And I still have certain things he told me, certain phrases he told me. He wasn't somebody who spoke a lot in rehearsals, but what he said was always the key for the role that I was interpreting at the moment, at the time, and I carry that with me every day. And I love rehearsing and coaching dancers in his work, like we are doing Manon here, and I coach many dancers in Romeo and Juliet, and different drummer at the Royal Ballet, which was one of the pieces he created for me. So I really somehow our sensitivity and connected, that's what I can say, because I was very young, so I was very unaware of what was happening to me and how privileged I was to work